We've got founder and executive director for the National Security Institute, Jamil Jaffer, with where we stand right here. All right, so would there be this complete alleged threat to annihilation, to a civilization by the president yesterday? Then it came to the ceasefire, and yet it seems as though you've got Israel and the U.S. on one side that believe that the ceasefire does not apply to Hezbollah in Lebanon, and you've got Pakistan and Iran saying that's not true. So where are we here, and who's right?
Well, this is the big challenge. We don't really know because it's unclear what the basis for the agreement was. Obviously, there's a debate about whether attacks on Hezbollah, attacks in Lebanon by Israel, by the United States are covered by this ceasefire agreement. What's certainly clear is that the U.S. and Iran agreed to enter into a ceasefire with respect to attacks on Iran, and that Iran would open up the Straits. It's also unclear whether Iran would get to control the Straits, as they say, or it would be an open waterway, as the U.S. has always asserted for the better part of 4 or 5 decades, and whether Iran will be able to collect a tax on or a tariff on passage through the Straits of Hormuz. None of this appears to have been settled in these negotiations, or at least there seems to be disagreement between the parties, and we'll see how this plays out. But as of right now, the Straits closed. Israel obviously conducted a significant attack on Lebanon, which, by the way, it's been doing for years. This is not something new. Hezbollah is obviously a terrorist group, U.S.-listed terrorist group. So it would be hard to imagine Israel agreeing to any deal that involves Hezbollah, or the U.S., frankly, involving any deal with Hezbollah. So we'll see what the Iranians say at this point.
Yeah, and we're expecting at least a meeting of all parties to happen in Pakistan on Saturday. It's been moved from Friday to Saturday. The vice president will be, J.D. Vance will be there in representation of the United States here. What do we make of this? Because it seems as though any type of diplomatic truce, if you will, ever attempted between the United States and Iran in the last couple of weeks here has really gone nowhere. Do we think that this time may be different? And what has changed if so?
Well, what's clear is the president would like the conflict to be on a pause and would like to try to find a way to negotiate with Iran. It's clear Iran wants that as well. But what's really unclear is what the terms of that negotiation look like. The president said yesterday that the 10-point plan offered by Iran formed a basis for negotiations. But if you go look at that 10-point plan, there's not a lot in there for the United States other than the opening of the Straits of Hormuz. And again, there's different variations of which 10 points we're looking at. But at least on the one the Iranians have put out there from their National Security Council, it's largely favorable to Iran, so it's hard to imagine how that's a basis for negotiations as well. And even if it is, how we're going to get to a negotiation that's one that the U.S. could accept in 2 weeks from now, that's also hard to understand. And so it does appear there's not a complete meeting of the minds between the parties on this ceasefire. The president obviously putting down a very significant threat, one that some have argued is not lawful, civilizational, and obviously not the right kind of language to be using. The president was trying to make clear that he intended to put some significant pressure on the Iranians. That pressure worked. They've now at least come to a notional deal, but that deal, again, the terms of it don't appear to be in agreement, so who knows?
Yeah, and at the crux of this, right, remains the Strait of Hormuz, which is really the one leverage that Iran possesses. It allows for these ships to cross through the strait, and China heavily affected because it needs that crude oil to get to China here. So who is controlling the strait right now? And the White House just in the last couple of minutes, Jamil, saying that, again, we're seeing some traffic there in the strait. But it seems as though there's a pause, there's a restart. This is going to continue here.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that today, for all intents and purposes, Iran does control the strait in practice because they've threatened to attack shipping going through it, and as a result, about 800, 900 ships are holed up in the Persian Gulf waiting to go through, and right now they're only letting onesie-twosie ships through, and those are ones that are Chinese flag to light. They're not letting any Western flag ships or ships associated with Western shipping. That being said, in reality, if the United States wanted to force Iran's hand, it could easily decide, like we did in the 1980s, to escort ships through the Gulf, through the Straits, and say, look, this is an international waterway. We believe in the freedom of navigation. We will dare you to attack an American warship, and then you'll have a price to pay if you do that. And the U.S. hasn't yet done that. The president's called upon our allies to get engaged. They have not agreed to do that. And so, at this point now, either we're going to come to a deal where the Iranians will reopen the straits, and the U.S. will agree to some sort of a deal, or the president will have to make the point of we're going to keep the straits open. But the idea of Iran controlling the straits and keeping the straits closed is simply unacceptable. It should be unacceptable to the United States. It should be unacceptable to our allies. And everyone should come together and say this is not going to work. 20% of the world's oil flows through this this international waterway. We cannot allow a country like Iran, or frankly any country, but a country like Iran that supports terrorism, to control that critical waterway.
All right. We'll see what comes, of course, on Saturday here from this, and if, in fact, anything reemerges as it relates to strikes. But clearly the uranium is a keynote here for the Americans. And, of course, as is the Strait. We'll be watching. Jamil, thank you for the update there.